we first went in and started working with teachers and being called in for student support, it was exactly that. It was whack-a-mole. It's like, this teacher needs this and that and that, and there was no process. And I found that once we created a process from beginning to end, from their concern about a student through actually receiving our services and support, just the process itself of the referral helped teachers gain not only ownership for what's going on in the classroom, but a lot of times we found that we're able to fix a lot of the problems just by going through the referral process. We may not even need to go in by the end of the process anymore, because the teacher starts to figure out what they're looking for, how to define the behaviors, what do we mean, and how to track their own stuff. And with simple strategies, we're able to actually make a meaningful impact without even going through a whole behavior plan process. So the first thing that we did when we created was we have a teacher or any sort of adult professional that has an initial concern about a student. And so the very first thing we want to do is, that's where it starts. It's like, hey, you have identified something that is important behavior that maybe needs to be decreased or behavior needs to be increased. That's going to help that student access their learning better. And so that's kind of the very first thing. You have a teacher, they have a concern. The questions that we have them ask is the behavior significantly disruptive to the learning or safety? And I think that was a really important question, because a lot of times teachers will get fixated a bit on behaviors that aren't necessarily overly disruptive or unsafe, and they may want to fix things that don't need to be fixed. And maybe that's the first thing, just asking the question, is this extremely disruptive to the classroom, or is it something we just need to maybe teach the other students how to be okay with, different behaviors like that. And so at that point, once we have that teacher thinking about that through the lens of, is this something we really need to address, or is this something we can just use classroom-based strategies? At that point, we'd have them fill out a referral form. And in that referral form, we would have them sort of just anecdotally tell us about what the behavior is, when it's happening, what they've tried already. And I'll put that and some of these other visuals in our Facebook group, which is, you can go to Facebook and find us at the Misfit Behaviorists. And I'll put that in there as well. And then, so once we have the teacher who's filled out this referral form, then we might create what's very commonly known as the ABC data collection, which is really anecdotal. And I think giving them just that basic data collection just gets them starting to think about, okay, what was happening before the behavior that I'm concerned about? What did the behavior look like? And what happened after the behavior? Now, this isn't completely measurable, so to speak. This is not an objective form. This is just getting the teacher start to gather that anecdotal information that we can then start looking at more extensively. So then once we'd have kind of that ABC anecdotal data, we have a submitted referral form. We can gather some more information from that. We then review kind of as a behavior team, the referral and that anecdotal information. And then we decide, okay, do we need some more anecdotal information, or do we have enough to really make a determination? Do we need to continue on with the process, or can we just go in and implement kind of classroom-based strategies? And is that going to be enough? And that also, I found that sometimes we give this information to a teacher and it takes a little bit of time to gather this information and put it all down, that sometimes just enough time has passed for them doing that the behavior is not such a significant concern anyway. And it kind of weeds out those that really need to be seen. And one that, sometimes a behavior pops up and a teacher, has 30 kids in there, and it's a big deal, but then maybe it's a behavior it's not going to last very long. It's sort of, they're going through a growth spurt or whatever it is. And sometimes just the process itself will help weed out those situations that if just give it a little bit of time and it will calm down. And sometimes we don't even need to go further. The behavior's kind of fixed itself over time. I think this kind of primes their pump, and we're going to continue on. If this does continue on, we're going to continue on with more data. It's going to be a little bit more specific and maybe a little bit more difficult to collect or whatever it is. It kind of primes their pump okay, I can do this. They're going to teach me, they're going to create a system for me. They're going to teach me how to do it. And it's something I can do. And we're going to get really good information out of it. So that kind of helps weeds us through and then pulls us into, at that point, we can have kind of a decision meeting with our behavior team, which is what we did. We decide, okay, we have this information. We can look at it. Are we going to move on with a full behavior plan and a functional behavior plan and possibly a behavior intervention plan? Or is this something we're just gonna, do we need to talk to admin about, extra breaks for the student or classroom strategies or whatever it is that we can just do without a full behavior support team or a plan to go forward? Then at that point, we can decide, do we need to go back at all? Do we just continue on? So from that decision that we make, so either we're going to go forward with just classroom resources and monitoring and revising anything, or we're going to go through and talk about a more extensive plan, which might be the full functional behavior assessment, which would be the next process in getting our signatures, getting dates on the calendar, understanding that we can't really do any sort of observations of the students until those things are met. At this point, up until this point, we're only getting information from the teacher or maybe therapists that work with the student in different settings, but we can't really do any sort of intervention or observations even without having those parent signatures and making sure they're on board with what's going on. And even the very beginning, most of the time we do want parents in the very beginning. We have a behavior support team. The teacher hopefully has a really good relationship with that parent and is having those conversations anyway. So this isn't a big surprise, because you don't want to have that conversation with a parent who has no idea that their student is engaging in certain behaviors that's problematic at school. And these random people are starting to contact them about plans and stuff. So we just want to make sure we have that open communication with the parents at all times.